Hello, everyone, and welcome to this February 20th, Tuesday, my show again. Of course, with me is my favorite online person, Thomas. Thomas, there we go. And I'm excited for tonight's show. I think it should be fun. One of the things that I am excited for is we are having on a guest, and I think there might be a little drama just because the topic is a little stressed. But we were talking about something before we came on air. What was that exactly while we are waiting for him?
I really don't remember because you were like, "Hey, let's talk while going on air." And that's all I think about now.
Oh,
I don't.
the new brand of atheists. Well, this is us. This
Oh
is
yeah,
our
the new
brand.
brand of atheist. Yeah, it's time for millennials to take over. I love Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Daniel Dennett, Sam Harris. I mean, all these guys, of course. Matt Dillahunty influenced me greatly, and I wouldn't be the thinker I am today without Sam Harris and what he said. But at the same time, I don't worship these people, and they're only one opinion of millions in the scientific community and the critical thinking, skeptical community.
That's true. That's true. They
But yeah,
could be
it's
right.
time for the millennials to take up the new atheism banner and not necessarily be evangelical about it, I guess, but have the good dialectic to where people are being like, "Oh, shit, I never thought about that before."
Mm.
Because there is
I,
something to be said about being a firebrand like Dawkins or like Dillahunty, right?
yes, there is something. I think that's important, but I sometimes I think that once people turn it on, they don't know how to turn it off, and then they're
Yeah.
kind of stuck in this place. Like
Yes.
Matt, I think Matt Dillahunty is in that place where he can't turn off being like the uh, angry like atheist type. Like he
Well,
just
look, like he said before, when you wake up every day in a world full of people who believe batshit crazy things, it tends to wear on you.
That's true. And we're going to be talking to someone who we're probably going to end up disagreeing with on a lot of things. Um, and they also refused the topic we wanted to talk about. So I said, anyone who's refusing to talk about a certain topic, I would love to have them on. And if they still refuse, they can get off. Um, I also last night didn't see Felicia's text, who usually assigns up for. So he should be on at around 8. That's the time that he's scheduled for. It's been about 2 minutes, and we can bring him in. But Thomas, you know more about Rastafarianism than I even knew about anything. Like, going
Well,
completely blind.
I read a comparative religions book when I was much younger, and I read the Rastafarian section. I
Mhm.
don't know if it had like a political bent to it because it was too. I don't remember. I just don't remember. But I do remember that it is specifically an African American, like traditional religion. It is Christian, but it's not Christian. It's
One second, we just got an email from him.
okay.
He wants to use a slideshow presentation.
Oh Lord, have mercy. How would we do
He
that?
can let me just message Felicia. He can come on and have a conversation.
He wants to slideshow for okay. It ain't that deep. I mean,
It's not that deep. Just come on, have a conversation.
can he?
We're
How
here,
would
good
we do a
faith. We want to
slideshow?
have, huh?
How would we do a slideshow?
He would have to share his screen, but that's not something that I do
Oh,
on this show. I'm not here to have like this lecture. We're not. It's not modern day debates. Um.
thank God.
So when he comes on, he comes on.
I guess disgruntled or not, we'll see what happens.
I just hope that that's the case. I hope that this. What I worry about, and honestly, by looking through the website, I want to ask him this: is this a way for you to try to advertise your courses? Like, I'm not. Well, this is not an advertising thing. We have good conversations, and this is the way we do things. If he doesn't want to do it, doesn't want to do it. I can't. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
People are weird sometimes.
Sometimes. So you started saying because you know more about Rastafarianism than I do.
I don't want to make any like
Yeah, but
presumptions.
what are some of the things that you're like?
Well, there's some crazy like on the far end of it. A lot of them think that the king of Ethiopia is either God incarnate or some form of God. That was a weird part. I don't know if that's 100% true for all Rastas.
Mhm.
Obviously, a lot of hatred for anyone who isn't, African American. That's usually baked into Rastafarianism, from what I've read. Um, so that's not good. But he may have a completely different. Bob Marley had a different take on it. This guy may have a different take on it. They all have different takes on it. But
Oh, there
yep.
he is. How you doing, Isaac? So I see you're up. You're up for us. How are you doing, my brother?
I am beautiful, my brothers. Thank you very much for the invite and looking to have a wonderful discussion with you.
I mean, from what I know, you guys reached out to us, so we're more than welcome to have you here. So that's
Of
completely
course,
fine.
yes, yes. Any which way, any which way. Thank
Any
you
which
very
way.
much.
Yes. So first of all, I want to say that I looked at your website and I thought, okay, this would be someone really interesting to talk about. And one of the things that I wanted to start off the bat, because this is sitting on me, is that you are the founder of the Institute of Holistic Knowledge,
Yes,
right?
my brother.
Why is it that you didn't want to talk about the nature of knowledge and how do we know things and how we don't know things?
No, what I like how you brought that to the forefront. From my understanding, what was the subject that you offered first? What is knowledge and how we know knowledge? Was it something of the sort?
Well, I wanted to explore like holistic knowledge. What is holistic knowledge? How do you get to holistic knowledge? What is the
Oh,
difference?
well, to be very
Right.
honest, to be very honest, I must say that's not how I gathered it first. But holistic knowledge, really, just as the term says, it really comes from being whole, when you actually deal with knowledge on different levels, different aspects of life, and the emotional aspect, the physical aspect, the spiritual aspect, the cosmic aspect. So that is where the holistic aspect of knowledge really comes from. So, I don't have a problem, my good brother, to be very honest, going
Okay.
into that sort of discussion. I'm actually here, at your service as such, depending on whatever angle you want to take it from. I'm very free. Nice to
Perfect.
meet you
Perfect.
too.
Yeah.
Let me just
Exactly.
say,
Nice. Yeah.
nice to meet your good brother.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the work you've been doing. And so I'm ready to go any angle you want to go.
Okay. So
I'm
the
ready.
main thing is where this podcast that I do is about having good conversations. It's about
So no
talking with
problem.
you, talking with the audience, and exploring ideas in a helpful way. That's the main goal.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
don't think that things are gotchas. Don't think that we're trying to put you in a corner. That's
I
never the
understand.
case.
I
Okay.
understand. Because as you said, you visited the website and you
Yeah.
would have noticed that we do a genre of things. I'm by profession really, as they would say, I'm certified as such in the field of archaeoastronomy. But I
Yes.
consider myself a historian as well. And of course, I'm a documentary maker. As you could see, I'm a radio announcer. We have our own radio station. So it comes down to, again, that whole question that you're asking, things being holistic. So we deal with health and wellness. We deal with what you would call the astronomy, ancient astronomy, because that's one of the main things that I'm into, my good brother. And I like the angles that you take on your channel. You speak about the belief of God, the reality of God, atheism to some degree. And, I was hoping that somewhere along the line we would get into a discussion along that angle as it relates to the reality of God and how it relates to the cosmos and all of that is holistic knowledge.
I believe we're always interested in that
Yeah.
topic for sure.
Perfect. I just want to let you know this is Thomas. He's my co-guest friend. He's a good friend of mine, and we've done
Yes,
plenty of
Thomas.
podcasts together. And we're
Blessed
kind of
love.
like an interview duo. So we've been doing this for quite a while. Um,
Very good.
so how do you want to refer Isaac, Priest Isaac? What do you like?
Well, it's Priest Isaac, but if you, it's up to you. You can say priest if you want to, but it's Priest
Okay.
Isaac specifically. I know
So
what the
let's
priest
so let's
Isaac.
so so let's open up and talk about archaeoastronomy. When I was looking this term up, I recognized that it's the study of how the ancients or different cultures and civilization would look at the stars or interpret the stars, interpret the celestial bodies, right? So the first thing that came to my mind is the way the Greeks and the Romans looked at the stars, right? They would see them as gods. They believed that they predicted certain things about the earth, right? They would try to explain the movement of Mars going through retrograde as what's actually happening, right? And as time developed, modern society views stars and the in the skies differently. We have a different approach. We have a different reason. We're doing different things with them. What is it unique about the way in which Rastafarianism looks at the stars, and how? What are the claims that you guys make? What is your beliefs about it?
Well, it's interesting, and thanks again for that. As you mentioned, the ancient Greeks. Now, as we know, as you mentioned, Rastafari as well being an African culture, although it sprung up in the West. We, as ancient Africans, we were really the individuals who began to map the heavens first. Now, this is not really to compare, ourselves with any other civilizations, but when the Greeks came into ancient Kemet, which they refer to as Egypt today, they sat at the feet of the masters. So this is why if you go to Dendara in Kemet, you have the temple of Het-Heru, or also known as the temple of Hathor, where on the roof, or the ceiling, pardon me, of this temple, you would see the constellations of the ecliptic belt, or the constellations of the zodiac belt, already mapped out. So you would see the Leo, you see the Capricorn, you see the Sagittarius, and this is at least 3,000 years BC, according to modern day archaeological dating, which could be a few years off. I'm sure we all know that. But the point is, it's some old stuff, and it is mapping the heavens even before the Greeks mapped the heavens, even before the Romans came in and
Hmm.
named the planet Mars and Jupiter and these different names that they gave.
Yeah,
Um,
even for like ancient peoples who like built Stonehenge, that was in order to supposedly map, stars. That would probably fall under
The Yellow
archaeoastrology.
River Valley also did it, right? The Japanese in the Far East. I think
Yeah,
almost every society used the heavens to tell
in
time.
Yellow River is the Chinese
Yeah,
offense, sorry.
yeah.
yeah.
But no, you're correct because, and again, it's very important for me to highlight that you see this science of archaeoastronomy in this modern time is considered a relatively new science. But obviously, if we're speaking of thousands of years BC, it got to be one of the oldest or older sciences that they have. Now, it's actually more than just the stars and the planets, but it's just ancient astronomy now is basically, it would appear as if it is a blend between astronomy as we know it and astrology again as we know it, because you must understand astronomy and astrology almost like brothers and sisters, but yet still they're so far apart because the staunch astronomer does not want to hear anything about astrology. He or she considers that to be fable, and there's no scientific basis behind astrology. And
Well, when you
then,
say astrology, what are you exactly referring to? Because the way I understand
well,
astrology is like, oh, you were born under the crescent waning
exactly.
Mars and this
Mhm.
zodiac sign, and then your personality trait and the people that you can
Perfect.
fall in love with. That's what I understand as astronomy, and there is no scientific basis
Astrology.
for that. Astrology,
Astrology.
yeah, my bad.
Yes,
And
yes.
there is no uh, scientific basis for that. So, what exactly are you talking about?
Well, astrology again. Yes, what you just defined as astrology, and I'm just using the terms that we utilize today. Now, this is why I am highlighting ancient astronomy, because now the let me be clear here. There is a connection. I'm going to slow down just a bit. There is a natural connection with human beings and the celestial bodies. It's just natural. And I will show you. Just give me a moment to prove it. Now, we are coming into a full moon. Now, I think we all know, for example, the three of us here, we're made up of the same elements that really make up the planet Earth, even
Yep.
down to the ratio. Like, for example,
Yep.
we're made up of, this is 70 to 80% water, and that is the same of the planet. Now, when the moon is full, scientifically, the planet goes through a different stage. It has specific reactions. You have high tide and low tide, depending on the stage of the moon. The coral reef would spawn on the full moon. Certain plants open on the full moon. Certain animals mate. This is just nature. It's not religion. It's just nature. Now, I'm saying these are things that we can readily observe, and some people are not even aware of this. But I'm bringing it up, and I know everyone listening could say, "Yeah, that's true." Now, the same thing can be said for all the planets that we observe. So when Mars is rising, it does have an effect on the Earth. We may not, well, not we, but most of us may not be aware of exactly what is the effect that Mars is having, what plant it affects, because this is why now you have plants that are connected to planets. You know, most plants that carry thorns are considered martial plants. You know, that's why, and Mars itself, the red planet, it does have a martial energy. Go
But
ahead.
so this and this I think this is where things split, right? I know that if a bus rides next to me really fast, like I'm standing riding on the sidewalk in New York
Mhm.
City and a bus whizzes past me, there's an effect. I feel the air. There's a measurable effect. I might
Mhm.
get splashed by water. But if a bus is moving really fast 4 avenues down, it has no effect on me, no measurable effect. Now, in the same way that the moon is tied to the earth, and I wouldn't disagree with it, even the tilt of the earth going around the sun, it affects summer. The tides are different when we're closer to the
You can't
sun.
get away from it. In the cosmos, everything
Yeah,
affects everything.
everything has
It's
an
just
effect. But when you
yes.
start saying that Mars and the position of Mars or the position of Pluto or even the position of us next to the stars has a measurable effect, and you know that effect, that's where we becoming having a disconnect. And this is why I was so keen to talk about knowledge, because my question is, how do you know that?
Give him a
Okay,
second.
positive.
He's there. You go.
Yeah. Did you
I,
are you
I
okay? Did you hear
understand.
that? Yeah.
No, I didn't hear that. Sorry, what you said?
Did
Try
you
it one more time.
but did you miss the last part of what I said? Because you disconnected
No,
for a
no, no. I
second.
thought the last few words you said
Oh, I
something.
said, and this is why I wanted to talk about knowledge, because my real question is, well, how do you know that? How do you know that Mars has an effect on the plants that grow thorns? How do you know that the position of Mars affects us down here? What are the ways in which you got to that knowledge?
All right, good. Now, what I'm saying, and this is where the whole aspect of quote unquote knowledge comes in. I'm sure in the realms of knowledge, you would hear of absolute knowledge and relative
Mhm.
knowledge, and some people they get very they get into a lot of semantics with the words when it comes to knowledge. Now, we are reasoning. You see, as a Rastafari culture, we have a term where a phrase that we utilize where we say, reasoning is better than preaching. I want you to listen to me good. I understand, your theory of the bus being a few blocks down the road, so then it doesn't have what may appear to be a similar effect on you as if the bus was right next to you. I assume you're trying to say that the moon is well just there, and so we can clearly see the effect of the moon. Now, first of all, if you notice, I took something that we all can observe and all agree on. It's more than just the water table. They have people, no offense to anyone, they have people that they refer to as lunatics. And that is because when the moon is full, this is where the whole werewolf thing comes from. The moon is full and people transform. It has an effect on their minds. Now, believe it or not, the moon affects everyone. It may not it may not be as obvious in some of us as in other people, but it has that natural effect. Now look how far away the sun is. According to science, it's 93 million miles away. You
Mhm.
may say now, but hey, the sun is that big and the sun is that hot. But you see, this is what I'm saying. My argument, even if you think I may not be able to prove which plant opens when Mars arises or which plant closes back when it goes into retrograde, but I honestly think that my reasoning thus far, which everyone could agree, that moon and sun has a natural effect on everything flora and fauna, more than likely all the other planets. Saturn, when it's so close to Jupiter, and when the moon goes in front of Neptune, all of these things that you hear the astrologers go haywire about. To me, they have a right purpose to go haywire about it because there's something scientifically happening that affects everything on the planet
I
Earth.
mean,
It's just
it,
natural.
in your defense,
In fact, okay, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was going to say, I am of the idea that everything affects everything, and what I would like to see is if we could show that the moon affected our theta, beta, and alpha brainwaves.
Mhm.
If something like that could be shown neuroscientifically, neurobiologically, that would lead me to the idea that, yeah, these changes in these patterns of the cosmos actually affect the way that we think and feel.
Mhm, mhm. But I
And
think there have been
but
studies that came to such conclusion, especially when you're going through a period of fasting. I
Mm.
don't
well,
know if
well,
you get
I,
into
th-
that now.
I think before we get into that, I think this is might be where we have a disagreement. You put so much weight and you gave so much power to your cognitive faculties. You said, "Well, I reason about it, right? And the moon affects us, and the sun affects us, and for sure that might mean that everything has an effect in the same way that a
Mhm.
bus going 4 streets down has an effect." But then to go ahead and say, I know which effects it has and which effects it makes is a very different thing. You can't reason your way into that unless you can. I'll be open to hear about that.
Mhm. Now, are you speaking of? I just clearly highlighted the
Yeah.
effect. I mean, I see this with my eyes. What that the moon has. Okay, let's just start with the moon because you're carrying me to
No,
Mars.
the moon is easy. I agree with you. The moon
Oh,
has an
okay, yeah,
effect. The
okay,
moon
right,
affects the
okay,
tides.
good.
The moon
Okay.
has been shown to affect menstrual cycles. I don't know if it. We can
Okay,
say
perfect.
we can. I don't
Oh,
know. I don't know if we can say. I don't know if we can say that the moon, because they called it Luna and therefore it's lunatics. The moon affects people's cognition, right? People used to call people who were lunatics possessed. It doesn't mean there are demons possessing them,
no,
right?
no,
So we can't make just semantic associations. But
no, exactly,
if you can
exactly.
simply let's just talk about Mars. How do we know that Mars affect specific plants?
The Marshall plans, for example. Before we go to the now, I'm going to have to bring some level of history into this now
Okay.
It's
for
all
that
right.
understanding because I'm
Go
not
ahead.
going
Go
to
ahead.
go with the now. For example, why did the Greeks? Let me put you there. Why did the Greeks and the Romans refer to these planets? Why did they give them the names that they gave them? For example, Mars. Now, Mars and Venus are both considered
Mm.
war planets. Um,
I don't know if they actually thought they
right.
were planning. I don't know what they thought of them. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
they
but
thought they
no,
were planets. They just
I'm
saw them
using that.
as things moving in the heavens, right? Things above them.
Right.
There
Yes,
was
yes. But
there was
I'm
no
giving
idea
you
of like heliocentrism. There was no solar system model. So, I don't know what they exactly thought about them.
no. Hold on. No, you see, you went somewhere else. Yes, there were solar system models. You can even see the Sumerian cuneiform. How far back you talking about?
That's
The
fair. No,
Sum-
that's
Yeah,
fair. I meant
if
there's
we're
no
going,
contemporary model cosmological solar models. There was no idea of like space and empty space and
no,
gravity.
but
Well,
there is a
Yeah.
lot in cuneiform that I'm assuming he's about to bring up. But a lot, there's a lot in. Anyway, go ahead.
no, but okay, but still, how you cannot really see now? You're assuming that at that time, so you're admitting, okay, yes, there were some people that had an idea of the heliocentric solar system.
I don't know.
All right,
I don't know if they
but
did or
that
didn't.
wasn't widespread. How are we so sure that that wasn't widespread? You see, this is the thing. Now, we're assuming
How am I sure that they didn't have a heliocentric solar model the way we do?
internationally, like most people didn't
Yeah,
understand.
because no, I mean because they didn't write about it. They didn't conceive of the heavens that way. They conceived of it in different ways. I know that Galileo thought of the heliocentric model because he wrote about it.
No,
And I
but
know what the Greeks thought about
The,
it
the
because
the
they wrote about it.
Sumerians might have possibly thought about other planets because they mentioned things, and I'm not being ancient aliens
no,
here.
but we've all seen the cuneiform tablets, haven't
Yeah,
you?
the
I have it
Anunnaki
somewhere. I can
and
pull
all
it
of the
up if you.
things. Yeah, they may have actually the Sumerians may have actually had some idea that there were actually planets out there in celestial bodies.
Yeah.
Okay, let me put it this way. I slightly disagree, right? But the Sumerians are considered the fathers of astronomy.
Yeah.
And they have the cuneiform. You could pull it up. I have it there. I don't know if I
No,
am
it's
sharing
fine.
my screen. I can see it.
I don't think we don't disagree on the history.
Okay, fair
We might
enough. So
disagree
what
on
I'm
like
saying, just like because I
the way
want
they
to get
conceived
back to
of
the
it.
mass point, because I don't want
Yes,
that to get away.
that's the important one.
Right. So what I am saying now is that when you're saying that the knowledge of the solar system, the way that we know it today, was not internationally renowned. No, I would disagree. I believe that we are limiting the level of communication we had in that time. Now, I'm bringing, and this is reasoning again. You have the civilization of the Olmec people, the Shai people. These are people that have gone back at least 3,000. In fact, their calendar begins the 13th of August, 3113 BCE. These are the Olmec people. If you've ever seen their structure, I have all these pictures I can show you
Yeah.
if I have to. These are the volcanic head structures that you found in Central America. I think they found about 11 or 12 of them. Massive structures, about 6 to 7 feet high. And these people are considered the people that would have taught the Mayans and the Incas the civilization that they are renowned for. Now, both
I have
Mars
heard of this.
and
Yeah.
Venus, pardon me?
I said I have heard of this before, so keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen to me. Now, they consider both Mars and Venus. We have a masculine and a feminine. This is where modern day time you hear people talk about men are from Mars and women from Venus. And Venus is seen by the Greeks as the goddess of love. Yes, as a goddess. But the Olmec people always considered both Mars and Venus as planets that related to war. So now the fact that we have ancient people, you understand, ancient civilization, seeing that both Mars and Venus are male and a female planet, and Venus is still love, but they're both related to defense. And we use the word war, but again, that's maybe a loose term. It has to do with action. It has to do with defense, especially on the part of Mars. Mars
Yeah,
is the
they attributed a lot of many different attributes to. You're right. Yeah.
right. So we have to give some level of credence, man, to the ancient ones. The same people that created this calendar that ended on the 12th, the 21st of December 2012, when most people thought the earth was going to come to an end. You know what
Yeah.
happened after this?
Yeah, don't mistake me with thinking that the
Okay,
ancients were
so,
ignorant.
so,
I
but
don't
this is
I don't think the
the
ancients were
foundation.
ignorant.
I'm
I just
standing
don't
on it.
think that, huh?
So I'm just showing you this. This is the level of the foundation that I am standing on. When you see, I speak of these
Yeah, but
different
I
things.
think
But
while
I
I
never
don't.
really got to the point now
Okay,
to
okay, get to the
show
point. Get to the point.
where
Let him go.
astrology, because I really want to. I mean, whether agree or disagree, I still want the audience to understand what I'm saying. You see, modern day astrology now. Um, Modern day astrology is outside of the mathematical, uh, if you want to say, astronomical clock. So, in other words, in the movements of the heavens, the sun actually has a specific movement. It moves 1 degree every 72 years. Now, I don't want to try to confuse anyone, but just
Yeah.
understand. Just
I know.
believe it. Okay, fair enough. Good. Now, the chart that astrologers are using today appears to be maybe 500 or 600 years old. I don't know if from Archimedes or Merlin or somewhere back in the days. So this chart that they are using has been astronomically frozen for at least 400 to 700 years. So in other words, every full moon, the whole planet goes haywire over where the moon will be for the month. So they will tell you, well, this month, I think the month past, it was supposedly a Leo moon, but it wasn't in Leo, it was in Cancer. You see, the point is, every month, the astrological world is actually a constellation off as it relates to where the
Yeah,
moon is. New moon.
this is a thing I used to tell a lot of people who are into astrology. Like, your
Well,
whole months are off, right?
I've been saying that for a while. Sometimes I wonder if I'm speaking in the wilderness. You understand? Now, I'm not trying
No,
to fight.
I know this. I know this. I'm aware
I'm
of
not
this.
trying to fight anyone's
Yeah.
belief or outlook, but I'm just saying, okay, if the art now, you may disagree with this, but if the art of astrology, and this is my point, if the art of astrology is a genuine art, that means that genuinely they're giving the wrong reading because it is astronomically off. I wonder if you get what I'm saying.
I
So
understand.
so if the moon is in Gemini, but I'm telling you it's a Taurus moon, and I'm giving you the reading that you will get if the moon is in Taurus, I'm giving you the wrong reading because the moon is really in Gemini. So
Okay.
astrology is like at least 10 degrees off, or at least 6 to 700 years
Okay.
off. And this is where now astronomy meets astrology has this is where you get ancient astronomy, because just a quick point before you come back in. Not because I'm just showing you that the ancients understood the value of constellations and planets, and when they when they eclipse each other, etc. It may not be the exact interpretation that modern day astrology gives it, but in many cases it's very, very close. But I'll make you continue. Really continue.
Do you think we've lost some kind of mathematical formulae that we have lost to time, that we used to be able to look at the heavens in a different way, and we just can't, we don't have that anymore?
No, I think astrology is a religion.
It
It,
is. Okay. Okay.
honestly, I think it's a religion that's just purposely stuck and just leading people astray, straight up. I don't know.
Okay.
I actually don't know who's the head of it, but it just comes down like a
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't.
no.
I don't think there is a head of it. I think it's just a
Yeah,
very
so
loosely organized, like, collection of things.
And I know many astrologers are going to be upset, like, who is he? Where is
I
he?
mean, that's fine, but I still didn't see that answer the question. And
Oh,
maybe
the
and maybe
Mars?
maybe we just don't have the time to get to it. But I really, so, like, you're making this claim that modern astrology is leagues behind. All the months are off. The states are off because they didn't account for the shifting of the sun in the sky as we wobble around the earth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But how does that connect with, okay, so our current readings, is there? What is the evidence? Even simple, like, statistical evidence of, oh, we found when Mars is in retrograde, we see an increase in this, we see an increase in that. There's a correlation. Where are those studies? Where is those things that we can actually verify and make it knowledgeable as opposed to just belief?
Um, I do natal chart readings. Now, and there are many different examples I could give you. In fact, I was going to give you another example first, but let me start with this one. Now, I do natal chart readings. And one of the things I actually, we like to say full joy. They say enjoy, but we're not ending the joy. We full joy. But anyway, that's just a long story. You know, we play with words sometimes because words are dangerous, eh? Believe me, that's why you spell words. We're under a spell. Believe me, those translate the language. It's all like a mystic thing, but that's
you
another.
know, you're not the first person. I'm pretty sure John Vervecchi has mentioned that before as well, where spelling is putting a spell or convincing someone. I've heard that somewhere before.
It
That's
Well,
is
I
real.
remember I remember learning about when I was doing a little tangent about spell casting. It comes from the idea that, like, through our, because, the, especially, like, the Judeo-Christian idea is that God spoke the world into existence. We can affect the world through our speech, and spell casting is through speech.
yeah.
Abracadabra, evrekadabra, created as he speaks. That's kind of where that idea of spells and our voice and our language being affecting the world in such a meaningful way, where it can really change matter, elevate things from non-holy to
This is
holy,
true.
etc.
It's deep, but we'll get to that some other time. Because just quickly, just quickly, because if even when you check the Bible, it talks about the Christ returning with a two-edged sword in his mouth. Now, if you look at the word sword, SWORD, and you take the S and you put it at the end of the word, sword becomes words, two-edged. Now, that is what I hope that I can use this term. That is what deeper masonry does. It crafts the language subliminally. So you're using these words which are really swords. Let's just get back to the question. What was it again? No. So there's a monument here in Antigua by the name of Green Castle Hill. No, that's not what I was saying. What did you ask me again? You were asking me
That's what.
about.
How does it go from belief to knowledge? Because I can believe many things, but usually the way I understood knowledge is justified belief, right?
Oh yeah,
Justified
I'm telling
truth.
you
So
about
how
the
do we go
nature.
from belief to knowledge? What are the
Yes,
steps that
yes.
you take and the way in which your uh,
Epistemology.
inquiry into the world get there from belief to knowledge? How do that elevation? What is the process? How do you do it?
Okay, that's almost the next question, but I like that one even better. All right.
It's a hard
Now, belief to knowledge. But my brothers, okay, but let me ask you now, but
Yes,
what is really knowledge? This is a serious question,
we can talk about
because
that.
you may say that you know this. Like, I know, well, I'm looking on my desk here, and I have a rock here. And I may say, well, I have a piece of I might just say a piece of stone. And I think, yeah, that's knowledge. I have a piece of stone on the desk. And someone might come in and say, that's not a piece of stone, that's a rock.
right.
And and then now
Yeah.
it goes to a next level altogether. Now, knowledge, when you hear the term knowledge or gnosis,
Mhm.
it stands for something that you are positive about,
Mm.
something that you are sure of. Now, I was just going to get into a story. I was saying later, chat. So I was going to actually tell you and give you my birthday. I was going to even give you the exact time I was born. Now, you may say, so how you know that? Now, I will tell you, my mother told me. Now, that's the only evidence I have.
I mean, that's
Now, I
fine.
have a
That's good
birth
enough evidence.
paper.
It's not extraordinary for people to be born at a certain time, and
I know,
parents
but
to remember that time. It's a very important moment for a woman's life. That's fine.
oh, okay, all right. Now you see, now you're using reasoning. You're almost like a
Obviously,
magistrate here.
obviously.
You're judging my blessed mother, and she would have passed on, bless her. You're saying that, okay, well, listen, man, this case is different. She would have remembered this. I understand. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying now, you're using your judgment in that case. That's what we were doing earlier. When
Ob-
I use something
Obviously,
factual that no one
of
can deny,
course,
and
of
I
course.
kind of superimposed it to things that are related to it, to say, hey, if it works with this, more than likely these are doing something too. That was just a reasoning. I wouldn't consider that belief. I consider that knowledge, because I
Mm.
used something that was actually in front of us, and then I superimposed this on things that are similar to it, planets and like that.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
but that
So
superimposition isn't equivalent, right? Because
I
there's certain levels of, for example, if I claim that I was at the gym earlier today, that's usually sufficient. That's enough to say, okay, I can believe you. I know Dandan went to the gym the other day.
you worked
But if
out.
I tell you I went to the gym and I saw a horse jump up from one building to another building, that now things are becoming a bit different. What if I even tell you that the horse jumping from one building to the different building made my brother drop his cup? All of a sudden, I'm adding all these different variables, things that begin to create incredulity, right? But the date and the time that you were born isn't a thing that you tell me, oh, my mom told me. My incredulity bubbles aren't coming off. There is reasonable, sufficient reasons to think that one claim that isn't really that extraordinary, and that is sufficient evidence, as opposed to a claim that's very extraordinary. You see the difference?
Okay, in my world, I'm not a big debater,
I'm not
but I
trying to
use
debate. I'm just trying to
no,
keep
no, no, I know,
not
but I'm
equivocating.
just going to show you something, and I know that both of you are into this sort of studies. Now, belief and knowledge, and I'm going to look at it from a semi-religious historical level. There's something known as the Hezekiah seal. I'm sure you would have come across the Hezekiah seal. Now, once we were having a small debate in the community, as it relates to the reality of King Solomon and David and all of that.
Mhm.
So it was a big group of us. So that came up. We had the whole PowerPoint and everything. It was very nice. So that came up. This was several years ago. The Hezekiah seal. And on the Hezekiah seal, for those who do not know, it's I don't know the size. I haven't seen it actually, but I guess it's about the size. And it has the scarab beetle on it, which is Kepra. with the wings. It was found somewhere, I think, in Jerusalem, but it has Egyptian, you know, glyphs on it, and it has Hezekiah name in, I think it's Aramic at the time there. So anyway, one of the rebuttal points was, are you sure that the Hezekiah seed is authentic? Now, the reason why I brought that up is to put on the table again knowledge and belief, knowledge and belief. What is knowledge really? When I went to school, the knowledge was that Pluto was a planet. That was knowledge. And if you said it wasn't, you would have received an X in your book. Now, if you say that it is, yes, you're gonna get the X again because that knowledge, according to what they define as a planet, has changed.
Well, yeah, knowledge can
I
change.
agree.
Yeah,
Real
knowledge can
quick,
change.
I agree with you. And me and Dandan are all about the idea that knowledge is not certain. A lot
This
of
is okay.
epistemologists,
There you go.
yeah, a lot of
There you go.
epistemologists in the world who do epistemology, they're going to try to seek for that certainty. But we're fallibilists, you know, we're pragmatists. We understand that we can't possibly know anything for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So belief to me is just what we act our behaviors on, and then knowledge is just a subset of belief. If you believe something to the point of where it would literally destroy your world to know it otherwise, that's knowledge. And it's very hard to like say that knowledge is just justified true belief. I have a belief, it's true and it's justified. That's when I have knowledge. There's a lot of argument with that. So I get the semantics of saying who knows what real knowledge is. I get that. But I guess what I'm really concerned about is why believe things without sufficient evidence to warrant the claim. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but
Yeah.
because what you're saying a moment ago, just to even somewhat dovetail, return back to what you're saying that the acquisition of knowledge and claiming it is not as what you would say incumbent upon us as most people feel.
Hmm.
Like okay, you're like for example myself, yeah, my quest from a long time was to find the truth, you know, which obviously would come with knowledge. And you're saying, man, don't burn yourself out. If you don't know, you just don't know. I mean, just use your instincts and go through and
I
everything.
still say that I know things, but I just
Of
don't know
course.
them absolutely, right? You know, that's the thing that we have to remember is that if I think that the search for certainty is a fool's errand. That's just my opinion on it. But at the same time, I know that the sun exists. I know the planets exist, but I know for certain? Am I certain that they exist? No, but I know that they do. It's not just a belief. I have good reasons to believe that they're out there. The only good reason I'm trying to look for a good reason.
So sorry, certainty is higher than knowledge.
I think they're two different things, right? I
It
can
sounds
know
so.
things that are false. I can
Oh my
know things like a person who's schizophrenic knows that they're seeing these things, but they
goodness.
can also know that these are simultaneously delusions. And also, knowledge and truth become different things. So, for example, you and I might disagree on what is true, and we might know conflicting things. But for me, it's knowledge, and for you, it's knowledge. So that's why I think it's such an important thing to talk about. Well, what is it the criterion? What are the things that make that for you? How do you go from belief to knowledge? And is that uniform across different magisteria? Like, would we use that same standard when it comes to medicine? Would we use that same standard when it comes to psychology? And why not? Because there is different standards of knowledge in different fields, right? Things that we know that are true about sociology, you will never use the same proofs you would do in mathematics, right? So I understand that there's degrees and levels to this thing, but I really just want what's your way. How does your school, how does your ideology go from belief to knowledge? What is your criteria? Like, how do you separate what people
Yeah,
believe and what people know?
let him jump in. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah.
I think and I'm learning a lot here, you know, so give thanks. I think that, and I appreciate, the outlook that both of you have too. I think that there is a certain circle of knowledge that is obvious, and that obvious circle is very rich. I think most of what maybe like a person like myself would proclaim as knowledge is within that circle. I'll give you an example of,
Okay.
of what I mean.
Yeah.
Uh, the and you said something just quickly there a moment ago. It reminded me of even a phrase, not a phrase, but something I would always tell people in a court of law. You
Mm.
know, everyone has, let me get it straight, everyone has, if I'm not mistaken, evidence. Yes, evidence. Everyone has evidence. Both sides actually has evidence. So
Correct.
when you hear someone says, hey, this is the truth because I have evidence, I say, okay, that's interesting. But in a court of law,
Right.
the plaintiff and the defendant or whatever you have, they both have evidence to bring to prove. But whose evidence is the proof? Now, I'm saying that there's a circle. As I said, okay, I'm a archaeo astronomer. Now, the brother just said he knows that there's a sun. I could carry you into a circle of people who will debate that with you for the whole
Yeah.
night.
I mean,
And I
some
mean,
people debate the Earth is flat, right?
they put up all of this stuff, and even that they're planets. And especially that fraternity of people there, they're going to tell you that those planets are not really planets. They're hanging balls. No, and I love that debate. That flat Earth debate. When it
Mm.
really raised its head again. Oh man, I was very happy because no, I'm not of that opinion. I don't know how you look at it, but I'm not of that. Obviously, if I'm what I say, I'm not of that opinion. But I was intrigued with how ones were going back and forth. But I have the remedy for that. There's something known as the northern circumpolar stars. I'm not going to take the program and turn it into a flat earth program.
Right.
But up to this day, no one that is of that idea could explain how the northern circumpolar stars exist on a flat plane. It's actually something impossible, really. It is
I
actually
agree. Their model does not explain the
okay.
heavens.
Well,
It
and
doesn't
I will
work.
just leave it at that. I wouldn't even
Yeah,
go
we won't
into.
we won't go too far into that. So
Yeah.
let me jump you to this real quick because you
Mm,
did mention it earlier. We can still talk about knowledge, and I think that's extremely important to talk about it because I've had an entire series on knowledge. I just love it. But what
mhm,
did you mean by spiritual knowledge earlier?
mhm.
Because I did
Uh,
hear you say that. I think I could be wrong, but I heard you say spiritual understanding or knowledge. What was it?
Well, yeah, you could say they still they're connected, but then now that is a bit out of one circle and gone into a next circle, because I'm of the opinion. I like to tell people this, and you could brace yourself. If not you, at least somebody in the audience, just brace yourself. This may shock you for a moment, but it's going to be all right. I
Okay.
do not have a soul. I am a soul. I have one of these, the body.
Oh boy.
So now, just that paradigm of thinking alone. I mean, that's why when you say it, I've said that to the audience. Come on, I said, take it easy. Don't worry. Just take your time. Let me finish my sentence. Because obviously we have been taught to think that this is us. What we see in the mirror, like that is us, and we have a soul. Maybe we heard about that, and we have a spirit that guides us. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I'm the master of understanding what the soul and the spirit is and the exact difference between the two and all of that. That's a different realm. But I am conscious enough to know that there's more than this. I'm conscious enough to know that the intelligence that is commanding this body here to move existed before the 2nd of January 1976, 10:23 a.m. when I was born. You understand? So again, that is just the beginning of understanding what is spiritual knowledge. That you are beyond just this physical thing. Hence comes in the whole concept of even reincarnation. See, you've gone into different subject areas now.
Yeah.
I like to just jump back to the knowledge. A person might say, how do you know? Because I like the discussion. How do you know that reincarnation is real? Can you prove it? All right. Someone may say, well, if you read the Bible, John the Baptist was the reincarnation of Elijah. Then a person may say, but wait, how do you know that the Bible is the truth? How do you know that it's historically correct? But then now, I might say, no, I never said it was historically correct, but it doesn't mean that it's not true. Historically correct doesn't mean true, because a person may say, I see you talking about the Egyptian hieroglyphs and Heru and Osiris, the green man and the man with the hawk head. These things are not real. No, it's not that they're not real. They're not literal. Let's get it good. They're not literal, but they're real. They stand for principles. They're very, very real. In fact, for example, a person may say, but Horus never existed. Horus has existed in every age. That's the science of an age, because the age always brings out a specific archetype of a savior and saviors. Family is deep, eh? That's the spiritual
I hear you.
realms now.
So
Real
so
quick.
it's like a life narrative.
Oh, beautiful! Like I
Okay.
Okay.
like narrative.
Because I was reading on Wikipedia. This is going to be the last sentence question because we're really at the end of our program, and
I
we'd love to
appreciate
have
it,
you on
man. I
and
really
welcome
do.
you on
Yeah,
anytime.
it's been a really good
It's
talk,
been
by
a
the
good
way. I
conversation.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Wikipedia, it says that Rastafarianism adopts a literalist interpretation of the Bible. Do you disagree with that understanding? Because you just said that it's figurative or metaphorical.
Um, I The question is if I disagree with that.
Yeah, with what is
I don't disagree with the
ri-
statement.
yeah, on what Wikipedia says. Is that like a
Right, I don't actually
misunderstanding of
disagree, because
Rastafarianism?
most members who are of the movement may look at the full totality of the Bible as full literalism and has lost the understanding of the symbolism that's within it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't disagree with what maybe Wikipedia would have said, because I live amongst it. So that may be the truth, but that don't necessarily mean that that's the up-to-date concept of looking at even not only the Bible, but even other solar books that have been written, that have been really crystallizing the movements of the heaven. That's why it's called the Holy Bible, Holios, Helios, with sun, and Biblios,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
solar book. That's why there's so much solar activity in the book, and even the Son of God, the Son it's a sun.
I
I know
hear
you
you.
know all of this, the 12 disciples, the whole show, but it's even deeper than that. It's even deeper than that. Even in the book of Malachi, when it says, and I'm just going to say this quickly. I think it says Malachi chapter, book of Malachi, the last book in the Old Testament. It speaks of the Son of Righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings. And that son is spelled, well, it's S-U-N with a capital S, which obviously means it's what we learned in school, a personal noun it is. So it's someone. And this sun has healing in its wings. Now, when you look at the ancient temples of Kemet, you see the sun with the wings, which is symbolic of what is known as Quetzalcoatl, which is the feathered snake. And just one last point too. And you can tell me what you think about this as it relates to knowledge. The ancient people of the ancient Shai people, which is the Olmec people, Mesoamerican, and the ancient Egyptians and Africans, they always had this symbol of the snake with wings. That's where you get the dragon today. And they always considered that the snake with wings represents the cycle of the sun, or the sun in flesh, which is where you get the sun and the sun, SUNSON. Now, modern day science, I wish I had these pictures I could show you, would have studied the cycle of the 11-year sunspot cycle. In fact, there's an individual by the name of Maurice Cotteriel, I think that's how his name is pronounced. He wrote two books, The Super God and the Tutankhamun, the Prophecies or Mysteries. And he highlights this perfectly in his book. Modern day science, after studying the 11.5-year sunspot cycle, the impression that it gives on the computer graph mimics that of a snake with feathers, where you have for thousands of years different civilizations have been highlighting this snake with wings. Egypt does it. The Mayans and the Incas have been doing it. Even the Japanese, the dragon is the serpent with the wings, and it's symbolic of the cycle of the sun. So, and of course, none of these people supposedly had the technology to understand the biology of the sun.
Yeah.
So, knowledge and belief, it's a deep, deep conversation, man.
Knowledge is not an answered question. I agree with you on that. And there is a lot of and I'll let you get done here in a minute. It's done.
I'm good.
No, no, so symbolism is lost in the mainstream world because people are controlled by symbols. People are advertised to by symbols. All of the holy books are based on a lot of symbolism, and I think people need to become a bit more symbol literate to what these things mean. You brought up
Definitely,
the
definitely, man.
yeah.
Yeah, just agreed. Just agreed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's just agreeing.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. I had a delay on here, but no, I mean, you brought up It's kind of like the dragon with wings. What is the medical symbol? The snake around the coil and the
The cat.
centerpiece.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Some call it the Cadiz,
Yeah.
Cadisus,
And
Cadus,
also, like, I
yes.
think the anthropological study of symbols and how they've developed and have cross-cultural connections, very interesting. But we are at the hour mark, Priest Isaac,
Thank
and I
you
want to
very much.
thank you for coming on. We
Yes,
really
yes. Let me
enjoyed
tell
it.
everyone, I'm in the Caribbean island of Antigua. You can check my website,
There we go.
priestisaacinstitute.com, and connect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priest Isaac. We'll hopefully see you around next time, and we'll shoot you an
Yes.
email. We'll see if we can schedule another interesting conversation.
Thanks very, very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a really interesting conversation. Thomas, do you expect it to go that well?
No, it's just us in here, right?
Yeah, it just us in here.
God damn, man, that's some cognitive bias, apophenia, conspiratorial line drawing. I mean, I was trying to be nice, saying that yes, we are symbol illiterate and we
Yes.
do get controlled through symbols, and I was just trying to bring it to like an actual thing that could help us to understand being advertised to, being politically motivated to all these different symbols that people use. And anyway, but the shit about astronomy and the shit about knowledge he said was just foolish because he's like, I am a soul. I don't believe in a soul. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I wanted to like push on that, but it was also getting towards the
I
hour
don't
mark.
think that you could have pushed on him, mainly because there's a bit of a delay. He
Mhm.
seemed like he was wanting to really defend himself. So if you wanted to actually get to the nitty gritty with him, you might have actually made him upset. You know what I mean? I could just
I
feel
see.
that from him, that if you'd have dug too much harder, he'd have just kept getting worked up and worked up. I'm not saying he'd get mad and like fling, but I mean,
I don't think so. He seemed like a very calm guy.
he was. I could just feel that he was getting aggravated by us saying knowledge and knowledge and knowledge, and we had to explain. Look, we're not talking about certainty. You know, these things that we obviously think other people know. We have to explain it, and
True.
evidence is not his forte. He doesn't understand the meta epistemological need to understand why evidence would give us the right outcome. As in, yes, there are evidence in the court, and there's evidence for the plaintiff and there's evidence for the defendant, but the evidence that actually wins out is the ones that has more credibility, justifications, and epistemological
And there's
research.
actually certain forms of evidence that the court just rejects. They won't let them bring it
Correct.
up.
Hearsay. The entire Bible would be thrown out of court for hearsay. It'd completely be
Yes,
thrown out of court.
yes,
Wouldn't be used
obviously.
at all.
And I
So
think that what's interesting is that while in the emails they didn't want to talk about knowledge, and we ended up talking about knowledge, I think he almost expected it to be like a debate, bro. Um, gotcha. No,
I
but
think that's what he got. That's what he got in his head when you were starting to question him about knowledge. I could just feel it. You know what I mean?
because I just really wanted to know. Well, how do you? Because let's put for example, like
All right, Don, how do you know something?
I have very similar. I take on pragmatic notions of truth, and therefore things that I consider true and to be evidence have to underlie a pragmatic framework. When I have these things that underlie pragmatic framework and they align with my observations, I consider them knowledge.
How do you go about gathering evidence?
Uh, Plenty of different ways, right? Verified sources, academics, uh, experimentation, right? Physics,
Empirical
observation.
senses. Empirical senses. That's how we get evidence. That's how you get evidence, is your empirical senses. They can be malfunctioning. We can have cognitive biases, but evidence through experimentation shows us the way to follow. As
Yes.
soon as the experimentation gives us a central limit, then we can follow that central limit and say, okay, we need to work within the bell curve of this hypothesis, and we need to go this way.
Yeah.
This is where the evidence is leading. Everybody who's a coherentist or any type of like strict, I don't know, something like that, is going to say, let's pull in what I think is evidence to my web. You know what I mean? And that's always problematic. I'm not saying that we can't believe things before they're true, because there's that whole thing. Was it reasonable? Reason is not perfect. Was it reasonable to think 500 years ago that the sun went around the earth?
Yes.
Okay, but they were wrong, right?
Yes.
Okay, so is it reasonable to believe things without evidence?
Without evidence? No, I don't think
Yes.
it's reasonable to believe.
I don't
without
either.
evidence.
So that's the crazy part, is even knowing that our best efforts can still be wrong, it's even more upon us to learn the fallacies and the cognitive biases that he was engaged
Exactly.
in, fucking
Correct.
apophysia and stuff,
Correct.
to get past that. Because if we don't have the empirical, we have nothing. We have nothing without the sensory.
And this is something that I try to hint at, but I think he didn't really get it. Like, you're right that a bus affects me. But if I'm next to a bus and it hits me, it's going to affect me. But if it's 5 feet away from me, that effect is different. It is measured differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that observation that he wasn't able to bridge, right? What is the observation? Like, and then when you have these loose correlational observations, like, oh, people are more crazy during a full moon. Well,
Correlation is not causation.
Exactly.
Big thing
Now
there.
the fallacies matter, because in these connections, it's such a different problem that we're solving. We're no longer just talking about very obviously true or knowledgeable. This becomes gray. And so you brought up the central finite curve. Is that
Central limit theorem. The more things you put into a fucking function of a graph, the more it approaches a normal distribution.
Okay. Yeah. So, for example, people are getting loony around the moon. Well, we're gonna need a bunch of data. We're gonna need, and that data needs to fall away from that line. It has to have deviations, because if it doesn't, it's just throwing rocks at a wall.
It could be random noise in the function.
Exactly.
It could be random noise in the function of the graph of the function. So I mean,
well, we're not going to go on forever. I want to thank everyone for coming on. Thomas, thank you for coming on my show. I enjoyed you here thoroughly. I will be back next week on Tuesday. I've been really busy lately, so I haven't been as active on YouTube, so I still want to thank everyone for coming on. And you can follow Thomas on his YouTube channel. That's Thomas Panther. You'll find him. Thomas does interviews like this, and he goes much more vigorous than me. He's less into like debate and showy. He's a big nerd. But thank you everyone for coming on. And as always, stay thinking.